I could see it, but the way it's set up through the StreamYard right now on my end, I can't. I can see it now. Perfect. Yep. There we go.
Okay,
I can read it. Perfect.
cool. So, man, this is our first episode, if you will. We calling it against the grain for the moment. Of course, we're not trying to mess anybody's copyrights or trademarks up, so that could change at a given moment. But we're going to be discussing today with my brother, Dr. Nakfa, um, some interesting and what I would consider critical information dealing with ancient or antiquity Africa, East Africa specifically, and one of the main, what I would consider blind spots in the historical narrative due to many reasons. And we'll go deeper into that as time goes on. But what I received a text earlier today from my good brother here, who is from East Africa, and it was funny because me and the brother have been friends for a few years now, and I know him for being hated for sharing information regarding Eritrea's antiquitous history, and now some of the people who I've literally witnessed shut them down or hit the mute button or kick them off the stage or kick them out of the chat are now adopting the information, AIing it up, and with the remix button. So before we actually play the video, Brother Nakfa, if you could just kind of, introduce yourself and your position and kind of what you dealt with this history, um, and then we can go from there.
Appreciate that, brother. Yeah, just like Dr. Gabriel has said, we've known each other for a couple of years now. Um, and I gotta say, of all the brothers that I've encountered, I've met, this brother right here is definitely open-minded. He isn't quick to judge. He doesn't think he knows more than the next. We're just trying to build. So I definitely gravitated towards it when I first met you, So shout out to you. But as far as me, um, yeah, I'm Eritrean. Uh, you could call me Adelaide Damotian. You know, history. Well, mine. I was raised in Oakland, California. Born in East Africa. And excuse me, what I've encountered, unfortunately, throughout my life is interesting tell of history, right? I've always heard Ethiopia, Ethiopia, Ethiopia. A lot of brothers and sisters clamor about Ethiopia and Egypt, but they never brought up Eritrea for reasons I started to figure out, and it's deep. It's so deep. It would go over a lot of people's heads if if they didn't study. But if they definitely studied, and also understand the geopolitics, just in that area, oh man, it's huge. So I just appreciate, the fact that we have an opportunity to put this information. At the end of the day, this information is for everybody. This is the too many people I've heard and listened to lie about the information just to make a quick buck, just to monetize. And I'm not I got no problem with you monetizing it, but at least tell the truth. Give the people what they really want to hear. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't half step. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Yeah, so that's been happening across the board, as many of you well know who catch this information. If you watch those channels that not necessarily debate centered, some of those channels are okay, but some of the channels where what I consider hornets nest, where they create confusion, dissent, uh, make people within the various our own community start to fight and get at each other based on misinformation. And uh, my opinion on all of that is that the best way to get to a point of and everybody doesn't have to be unified, right? I'm not necessarily one that believes everybody needs to be, humming and strumming, if you know what I mean. So, but I do think that the men in the community need to be at a place where we can meet each other on a level playing field of scholarship, be able to lay our information out for what it is, uh, good, bad, or indifferent, like it or not, and we just figure out what's what. Because if people are hiding information or people are remixing information, then we don't really have something congruent. In the martial arts world, they call it innovation, right? So, like, if I go and learn a short yang from some teacher, and I decide that I don't like the way that he plays the lute in his form, so I change it up and I bring it up instead of from the side or something. Well, if I continue to teach it the way I do it and call it what my teacher called it, then I've made a remix, and I've really kind of changed something in the history, and I didn't tell anybody. So now all of the people that get it from me are now going to get a mishistory, a misquoted technique for the example. So I just find it important that we can pour over notes, pour over information when people, make claims, that we show and prove those things to the best of our ability. None of us were there, right? So we got to put that up in the air first. But there's such thing as sources, and there's such thing as primary sources and secondary and tertiary, etc. So we need to be able to not only grasp what that means, how to put those things in place, how to vet the information, how to vet the scholars, how to make sure that the scholarship is official, so that when we pass it along to our babies, that we're passing on our history pure, unfettered, untouched, not remixed, if you know what I mean. So that's really what we're getting into today. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pull up this video, Nakfa. I know I got this screenshot up here. If you want to touch on that first, if you want to touch on the screenshots first and then play the video, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to, what's the title of that video, by the way?
I believe it's Phoenicia. Who are the real Phoenicians? Part 2.
Okay. See if that pops up. All right, who is that by?
It's by Amadeus Christ.
Okay. You wouldn't believe how many videos kind of had that same title.
What was that?
Like CHRIST.
Yeah.
All right. Amadeus Christ.
Yeah. It's just a part 2. I believe it's who are the original Phoenicians, or were the something Phoenicians, part 2, and it was just a couple of days ago. So
That's all good. It didn't come right up, but I'm gonna click back on this link and see if I can. Oh, I got you. Who were the Phoenicians? I just typed it in wrong. I said who are. Okay. Give me 1 second, family. If you want to touch on that screenshot, you can. If not, I'll have this up in just a second.
Yeah, let's touch on the screenshot. So the screenshot is highlighting, what does it say? All right, the first tribes that inhabited Egypt, that is the Nile Valley, right? And it talks about a specific area where they came from. Came from Abyssinia to Sinai, right? Abyssinia. And this is kind of this is like going along some of those same fallacies that I'm hearing on a lot of social medias. This understanding about Ethiopia and how great Ethiopia was. But when you actually talk to any Ethiopians and ask them about the greatest kingdom, Ethiopia, not what Europeans are calling, specific Ethiopians when they say burnt face, and that's what they mean by Ethiopia. But when I listen to these individuals and they shout out Ethiopia so much, I ask them, I'm always asking them, what is the oldest civilization, greatest kingdom they've ever had? They always go back to this Aksum. Well, me being Eritrean, I find that very interesting, kind of hilarious that if you go to Ethiopia in the museum, majority of it is going to say Eritrea. So
Mm,
for it to be a great kingdom, a great civilization, which I kind of don't want to touch on that yet until after the video, but it's just kind of like the theme that we're going to be discussing today, because it literally says the first tribes that inhabited Egypt, right, came from Abyssinia too. So it starts from Abyssinia. But when you look at the map of Abyssinia, they also connect ancient or modern day
mm,
Eritrea. But here's the issue, though,
that's right.
Doc. The only issue is when you look at this Abyssinian map, nobody on the Ethiopian modern day Ethiopian side accomplished anything nearly as great as what we were doing on the Eritrean side. And this is a fact that you don't have to believe me. People could travel. They've already established that
Mm,
the oldest archaeological site in all of East Africa, which would include your Sudan, which didn't cover, and that's another thing we definitely go against the grain if that's what it's, we're going to end up keeping it, but we're going to touch on, because even most people's beloved Nubia did not stretch right to the map of all of Sudan, and most people think. But when I listen to these individuals, they're always doing that. They're adding
mm,
a 10 on the two. Nubia didn't cover all of Sudan. Meroe, Meroe didn't cover all of Sudan. And most of the maps, they'll have you in different parts of the Nile. Some maps will show Meroe close to the sea, to the Red Sea. Some maps will have them on the
mm,
eastern or western side of the Nile. Literally makes no sense. But one thing is for
gotcha.
sure, we do find an alphabet, a language up and down that has always been there, and is also a Semitic language, which we're going to touch on a little bit later. But yeah, so to touch on this little highlighted part, the ancient Egyptians belonged to a race coming from Abyssinia. We also have to remember, for sure, for a fact, most people know at least that the queen in the 18th dynasty for sure had made a voyage into Eritrea. Never did they talk about actually Ethiopia. I don't remember any of them talking about modern day Ethiopia. But if you listen to scholars, certain scholars, they'll say, oh, well, at that point, they weren't talking about the actual Ethiopia land. They meant people that look Ethiopian. Well, then, once again, how are you going to meet a landlocked country of people before you meet others? So why would this name Ethiopia be like, why is it constantly used by individuals and they don't even know how to use it?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was doing just a little bit of reading, excuse me, while I was preparing everything for this particular demonstration. And one thing I noticed as I was rereading um, some history, and it really hit me, uh, knowing that, of course, Ethiops is a reference to burnt faces, right? Um, but it's interesting is that when you go into various European dialects, the only translation, well, there's two translations that I found for Ethiopian in other uh, European languages, and you're either going to find some derivation of more, or you're going to find the word Negro. And one thing that I noticed in what I was reading earlier is when they were referencing the Ethiopians, they were just saying the people that were of Libya, which at that time, Libya was not the country also that we know today, but was referenced by Europeans as the entire continent of Africa, or at least a major portion of North and East Africa, depending on the time and who we're talking about. So that gave me a little bit of different perspective. And I was like, oh, they were, because that was the word that they were using, which was derogatory, and that they were identifying the people of Africa by that name. They just automatically gave them that Ethiopian name. And now today, our misconception of what Ethiopia means versus what the country represents and how old it is and what it was in antiquity creates so much different levels of confusion that, it does take a little bit of a fine tooth comb to kind of clean that stuff up, especially if you're not from that area and you haven't grown up hearing this information. But I,
That's
I digress.
that's yeah, that's huge. That is very huge when you say if you're not from that area, because there's going to be some nuances that you just won't understand, right?
Facts.
It's like an individual going to a certain neighborhood out here, right?
Yep.
And if they don't know the nuances, it could be a little troublesome for them. You know what I mean? It could be difficult. But just to add on to what you just said, right? I'm going to read out of a book. It's called History of Eritrea from Ancient Times to Independence. This is a lot of Eritreans have this book, but it's just to illustrate the crazy fallacies. And this was in front of the General Assembly in the 50s, United Nations.
Hmm.
And he said this. His name was Ibrahim Sultan. Ibrahim Sultan gave the following prophetic words at the UN. Even from ancient times, Eritrea was never under control of Ethiopia. Never. Did not the popular uprising start against them Ethiopians so that the country, Eritrea, will not be under their control? If you comprehend the evidence submitted, are you contemplating to join Eritrea in a federation with the historical enemy? Why are we being denied the same natural right of nations to be independent? Why are we being denied the same rights bestowed upon Libya and Somalia? If a wrong decision is going to be taken, for all of the 4 steps we take to oppose the decision, fight for our right to gain our freedom, safeguard our survival, the members of this community will be responsible for any unrest or turmoil that erupts in East Africa. This is in the 50s, and these are some amazing prophetic words by my elder that literally states, we were never a part of Ethiopia. So what does that mean? That whole Abyssinia nonsense, you could cut it out. You can now start taking that. So now we can go back to this book that is written by a very famous brother that a lot of these individuals use. But our issue is from East Africa. People have gotten this word Ethiopian Abyssinian confused, thinking that because the Europeans have created these maps or these fictitious maps have been floating around, everybody assumed we were just one. Hence why they also use the word Habesha. But they don't know the word Habesha just means mixed, just like Bantu just means people. So you're not really being specific. Everybody in the world is mixed, so everybody could be Habesha. But when you start to say Habesha or Abyssinians did X, Y, and Z and think it's Ethiopian, then that's not true. There's no evidence to actually prove that. Even Aksum itself or Lalibela, these places weren't even created or built by the knowledge or understanding of Ethiopians to begin with, right? So it's so much that we have to like literally unpack, and it gets frustrating for me because, like you said, and you've seen it, from Clubhouse to YouTube, they constantly will boo anybody that isn't kind of saying what they want to hear. I go into rooms, they kick me out right away because I ask them simple questions. Okay, I hear how educated you are. Cool, no problem. I hear you have a lot of degrees. Cool, no problem. But have you actually spoke with the people of these places that you're talking about? Because I come from this area, and I'm telling you, the stuff you're saying couldn't be further from the truth. I had one the other day, Dr. Gabriel.
Yeah.
I had an individual tell me that Egyptians showed me a map that they only come from North Africa. I was blown away. And this is a brother that uses Dr. Ben, that uses Sheikh Anthony's job. And I'm thinking to myself, those brothers don't even say that. How could you come out of the side of your neck and say that?
So let me stop you there. All right. So he claims to be standing on the shoulders of particular scholars. However, when it comes to the actual data, he tends to make up his own narrative. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or is that what you're saying?
Uh, well, so so he will go find data that will fit the
The
point
narrative?
that he's trying to, the narrative that he's trying to paint for everybody. And
Gotcha.
that's like saying, okay, there's 12 slices to a cake. You're just going to show them one slice of the cake. Show them the whole cake, right? Show
Hmm.
them the whole cake and let's give them the opportunity to decide for themselves. But when people start nitpicking this history and say, well, no, I'm just Egyptians. Okay, well, there's so much evidence connecting ancient Gypsy to Eritrea that people, when they talk about it, they keep saying these random terms like Nubia, Ethiopia. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, man, we got to do better. There's only so many kingdoms in ancient times. So why don't we just start opening up these books, having dialogue with people from these areas, and see if that actually makes sense?
Hmm. No, and this quote, I was just reading it again that we have up on the screen, and you know, if you really break it down word for word, I know we're just speaking of Egypt right here, but when it says the first tribes that inhabited Egypt, that is the Nile Valley between the Syene Cataract and the sea, came from Abyssinia. And like you said, we obviously know where Abyssinia in antiquity was located in modern day Eritrea, correct? So then it says to Sinar, the ancient Egyptians belonged to the race quite similar to the was that say Kinos or Barabras? So the Barabras is the same thing that we call Berbers today. There's been a linguistic change over time, but I have in my notes I probably have 100 uh, quotes that I've gained from scholars just reading their works and their notes, where it's referencing the Barabras. So there's different ways that they've said it over time, the Bedabir and all these different things. But over time, this is what the European later called the Berber, and tried to make it into a barbarian. So again, locking into a narrative that I've been uh, championing for 25 years or better, uh, is that the so-called Berbers and the Moors are the Moors, right? All come from this area and are the people who we are now uh, sadly referencing as Black, Negro, colored, African American in the United States. Um, but yeah, so I'll let you continue because you were on a point, but I just wanted to touch just for a second.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was just getting a couple of these books together. Um, it's just odd that people choose not to read and study things because you can break it all down. Just some of the, like, for instance, I would sit there and say, I say. I've done it plenty of times
Mm.
around certain groups of people, and then they turn around, I say, and I'm like, okay. Or I would look into, for instance, like the Berber, right, and the Amazigh,
Mm.
and that connection going back to East Africa, and see, okay, this seems interesting. Or even the Moors. When people talk about it, they don't even know what they're talking about. You know,
Well,
most
let me
people.
stop you real quick because there was something that you came up uh, that you brought up. Maybe it was probably 2 years ago. Um, and what I found when you just said that, as far as like the Berbers and the Amazigh, right? Now, obviously, they come from East Africa. But do you know that if you were to look it up right now, majority of the information will negate that and try to deny that and say that there's too many questions uh, out there. However, if you follow, uh, migration patterns for thousands of years, whether you rock with it or not, DNA and haplogroups, if you even follow the people's own narrative, it's like they're telling you who they are and where they come from over and over again. And yet, I found uh, claims in from various scholars saying, "Oh, they don't come from East Africa. They've only been in West Africa or North Africa." And I'm like, that's not what they say. That's not where they claim they're from. But again, we got time to dig into all of this, and we're gonna dig deep. But I just wanted to, since you said that, I just wanted to touch on that.
Right. No, no, definitely. And I also want people to think about this tape, this clip that's going to be played too. It's going to be an underlining theme here, right? A lot of this knowledge and central understanding, because what do, if just use your common sense, if Egypt is the greatest civilization, but most of the elders said they come from somewhere else, and then those Egyptians have quoted saying, there's a place that is referenced as the land of gods. Now, let's just be real.
Hmm.
Why would you name a place something like that if it didn't, like, it blows my mind, you know?
Yeah,
So now what
yeah,
we have is a reference of a location that holds itself to a certain type of standard.
that's
And
right.
then we have a quote here that says, those Egyptians, by a trusted elder, saying he's given you a starting location saying Abyssinia. But then we further broke that down for you guys and said, okay, when you look at Abyssinia and that map of ancient times, all you have to do is go find the Ethiopian and ask them, sir, did you guys ever create anything before these Eritreans, right, that are your neighbors? Did you guys even the script itself? Because that's going to be something that comes into play, especially when, for instance, in ancient Gypsy, the most sacred symbol is the Ankh, which you will find
Mm.
in the Giz alphabet. It's not Ethiopic, my people. It is 100% Eritrean. So that's going to blow the lid. That's going to blow the lid off a lot of things. Because when one thing is for sure, you have to do trade with ancient Egypt, right? So they
That's
would
right.
have to know that. They would have to know this language. And for a fact, Dr. Ben and every other scholar have already established that these Egyptians come from somewhere else, right? Down south or up north, depending on how people understand the flow of the Nile.
Hmm.
Then you see, wow, okay, they're all kind of pointing us in this direction. But then when we look in this direction, where they also have the baboon that connects back to ancient Egypt that was mummified, when you look at all this overwhelming evidence in one general location and you figure out that, wow, it was Eritrea, not Ethiopia, then every single book that has been printed talking about how great this Ethiopia was needs to, I mean, I don't know what they need to do, but their time is up because there's no evidence to back it. That's what's crazy to me. There's been thousands of books printed, and I don't believe any of these people ever visited Ethiopia.
No, you're right. You're right. There's a there's a lot of really funny type information being put out, and just with that one quote, we've been on already. Um, we've been live for probably an hour, and I think we've been on for about 30 minutes. We've only dealt with one slide so far. So if that tells anything about what's happening here, and that bomb you just dropped, that was crazy. The Ankh in the Giz alphabet,
Oh,
that's an absolute megaton bomb.
I can
Everyone,
break. Go ahead. So, yeah.
no, I'm gonna let you finish. I just when you said that,
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, okay.
Not
So
even just that. We can even at some point in the future we can even break down Narmer. We can break down Tanetter. We can break down Metalway. We can break down what they say Ma'at. And then when you go and talk to an Eritrean or East African, some Ethiopians know this too, because we birthed their language. That's another thing. That's interesting.
mm,
So they didn't have a language like that until they dealt with us, an alphabet like that until Eritrea.
mm,
But the word Ma'at, and it used to throw me off. I'm like, okay, that's odd because that's Ma'at is in the language, and that
yeah,
just means more. So you want more, you want Ma'at, yeah, Ma'at is the deadly. So and I keep going down the list like Nefertiti. So when you ask an Eritrean or East African Nefer, that's to fly, and most of the times you'll see her with wings too.
yeah,
Uh, it's just the little
mm,
things here and there that we're just throwing out now, so people can really like get an understanding that man, these brothers are really onto something because the connections are there. We want people to realize what they've been taught to go ahead and just put that back, unthink that, right? Leave
mm,
whatever you've been taught at the door and come in with a fresh mind. Because if you come in with a fresh, open mind, I guarantee you, we're going to be able to show you how we're all connected, where it truly this power and information comes from your masonry, even the current day geopolitics, because even current day, not trying to create a stir, but what did Putin recently do? He released the facial or the what the characters of the Bible or the people of the Bible would have looked like, and
yeah,
they look eerily, strikingly similar to East Africans, specific Africans too, because once again, once we go into those books, instead of doing interpretations, we're going to open those books up and people are going to realize, oh my gosh,
hmm.
it,
This is the source. I heard a debate. I was listening to a little bit of a debate. Matter of fact, I was listening at first, and I kind of got involved. I forgot that that was on Clubhouse. Uh, but yeah, the the guy you were building with, um, he was some type of a was he a priest, a Coptic priest?
oh yeah, he was a Coptic priest from Scandinavia.
Exactly, and so that was a very interesting information. And but what I did notice, and I can say I appreciated about that conversation was that although in the beginning he seemed somewhat rigid, uh, after you explained your point, he he had no he had no qualms with it, and then after I shared my little portion of understanding as well, he was like, "Oh, I can see how all of that could be true." And these
Yeah,
were things that he hadn't considered because he was making definitive statements regarding the authorship of the Old Testament, etc. And these are things that some of the stuff I haven't really looked at in 2 decades, but I mean, I used to dig into all types of things, and I remember I have this book that's probably in my garage in a box, and I'm trying to remember, but it was about the it's about the Bible. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. The title is it'll come to me, but as I started reading that book, I couldn't put it down because as soon as I picked it up, it started talking about the Old Testament and how the scholars have been debating as far as to the authorship of the Bible, where everyone just automatically uh, names Musie or Moses as the author.
ooh,
But
don't say that now. Don't say that because if you gonna have, it's gonna go over people's heads. You better say Moses or Moshe.
okay, Moses, Moshe, you're right.
I don't.
So,
We don't want to offend any of our Hebrew Israelite brothers. You know, they
oh
only
yeah,
know Moshe. They don't know Moshe.
yeah, definitely no offense meant, hopefully none is taken. I, but what I'm, sharing is that the record and that the issue that the scholars have when reading it is that there are 8 different literary styles being used, and according to those scholars' research, is that the type of writing that's being done, some of it wasn't even done in the same period. Like that type of writing style wasn't even written during that period of time, let alone does it match this other writing style. So you can tell that there's several different authors, and that's a whole nother conversation. I would literally have to pull that book out for us to get deep into it. But um, hey, whenever you're ready, I can go ahead and hit play on this, and we can start diving in.
Yeah, hit play. I'm ready.
All right, cool. And just let me know if you need me to pause at any moment, and we can just pause and as we go. AI went heavy, huh?
Oh yeah, it's I like the presentation. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so they brought the elder in.
Oh, this is gonna be interesting too because we'll stop and play it at the times because go ahead. I'll show you why. I'm not getting any audio, brother.
Oh, you're not? All right,
Yeah, I'm not getting any audio.
let me make sure. Let me make sure stuff is looking right. All right, because I'm hearing audio, but then again, I'm playing it. So if you're not hearing it, that could be an issue. So hold tight. Let me make sure. I'm just checking all the little audio areas. Seems to be screen sharing. Yeah. All right, let me know now. Still nothing?
Still nothing.
Okay, I wonder if, let me look at something real quick. I'm gonna hit play and then I'm gonna go over here for a second. You still don't hear anything?
Nope.
Man, I can't. Oh, you know what? I can't. Let me let me check one other way. That'll let me know whether or not it's working or not. Let's see. Excuse me, family, as we work out these technical difficulties. I just want to make sure we do have some people in the chat. If you guys can hear it, I'm going to hit play again. and run a test from my phone to make sure I can hear it. Because Brother Nakfa is not able to hear it at the moment. Just let me know in the chat if you can hear it. What's going on? You know what, brother? You are 100% right. It is not coming through. I'm not sure how to fix that. But if we can, let's just let's talk about what the video was saying, especially the clip that you played for me earlier. Maybe you can even hold it up to the mic, or if you can just play
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna play. I'm actually looking it up right now. Give me 1 second. I'm about to play it.
Okay, cool. While you do that, I'm gonna pull up another slide. If you guys are just tuning in, we've been going in on some information um, regarding antiquity, Eritrea, uh, antiquity, Egypt, antiquity, Africa, in our true history. So we just had a little bit of an issue playing this video. So our brother's about to play it on his phone, so he can just mic it straight in, and then we're gonna listen to this clip, and then we're gonna dissect it a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and touch on this next slide as well while you do that.
All right.
Alrighty, so make sure I got the right one. And you know what I'm gonna do? Let me see if this will. I'm gonna try it one more time just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Anything I'm not.
Almost.
Okay, because it's not playing.
That's crazy when you're looking for
All right.
something, it doesn't.
All right. So I'm gonna while you get that together, I'm gonna pull this other slide up.
All right, I found it. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see if I can play. Can you hear? Let me know if you can hear anything.
Okay.
Can you? Because if not, then can you hear that?
It's it's playing low.
Yeah. Okay, it's coming in.
Why Africans went in was because
Oh,
of
there we go.
empty strength.
Okay, we can
And
hear it.
because
All right,
of lack of
perfect.
understanding, we have to go back to the Punic Wars, of which there was 3. That happened before the Common Era. Basically, give or take 300, maybe 200. This is the time of Hannibal Barca, who went to war with the Romans.
Okay, let me fast forward it to the part where he's talking about. Here we go.
Of Africa were of far greater antiquity than Carthage, and Phoenician trade in the Gulf of Salé on the west coast of Morocco was famous for many centuries before the Romans gave to that part of the coast the name of Sinus Emporicus. or Merchants Bay. Phoenicia, like Syria, was never one state, but from the earliest period down to the Persian monarchy, was always divided into a number of separate cities, each with its little territory around it. Allied cities in Phoenicia were very numerous, and it is thought probable that there may have been periods when all the cities of Phoenicia formed one confederation, at the head of which at one time stood Sidon, and at a later period, Tyre. Throughout the colonies of Phoenicia, as well as in the mother country, a common religion formed likewise a bond of union for the cities and strengthened and preserved the connection between them. The chief authority was placed in the hands of kings, who in turn were to some extent controlled by high priests. The revenues of the cities depended in large measure on their trade, and the Phoenicians have lived in history as a commercial people. Through a considerable portion of their history, the Phoenicians appear to have acted as commercial agents for Egypt. As they sailed, it is related that they landed on the coasts, sowing the land and waiting for harvests. Thus, a tradition of them lingers on the west coast as well as on the east, and to them it is in some quarters believed that the legend of the first white men in western Negroland may be traced. Carthage had intercourse across the desert with Negroland, and drew thence its supply of elephants, as well as gold and carbuncles. We may perhaps therefore carry back the date to a period when the Phoenicians dominated Egyptian politics, and the worship of Astarte or Venus Erycina was common in the valley of the Nile. It is interesting also to observe in Egyptian records the constant reference to magicians of the south. The part which magic played in the chronicles of Egypt is of course a matter of common knowledge. The whole north coast of Africa was, we are told, protected by talismans, burning glasses, and other marvels raised on pedestals which were placed at intervals along the shore. Alexandria could not be built till talismans had been erected, which had power to protect it from the monsters of the deep.
So that to understand who the Moors were, you have to step back. You have to go beyond 710, 711 AD. Who were these people that went into Spain? And you would have to understand that the Moors, they were the Etruscans. The Etruscans were Africans that had built the city known as Etruria. Etruria is the country we today call Italy. The Etruscans were on the islands of Sardinia, on the island of Corsica. They were developing civilizations in the Mediterranean basin. There were Africans that were in Spain 1,000 years before the Common Era. We have to see that the language of the Etruscans comes directly out of the Niger-Congo language, which goes from West Africa through Central Africa to Southern Africa. It is the base upon which Kiswahili is. It is the language upon which most Africans are now in dialogue to. The largest group of Niger-Congo speakers are the Bantu people. I don't care for the word Bantu, but the basic thing is that
Glad he cleared that up.
Yes, of civilization.
That's important.
Culture comes out of the Niger-Congo language, and this was the language spoken in the Mediterranean basin.
He says Niger-Congo, the elder.
Yes.
But
Go to Greece,
now let's listen to what the director is illustrating.
Italy, it was African. And guess what?
And we're going to go back to it, but
the country, Etruria, was called Rome.
Rome.
We're talking linguistics now. That is why the capital of Italy today is called what? Rome. It came directly out of this. All of the Roman baths, all of the Roman civilizations, the architecture of Rome came from the Etruscans. These were the individuals that had settled in this area thousands of years ago when there were no other cultural groups in this area. There were no Greeks. There were no Romans. This is what most modern day cultural anthropologists don't want to talk about, because you have to give credit to the people who developed these civilizations.
Hey, real quick, what's that brother's name? You called him something Christ?
Amadeus.
Amadeus. I'm just fixing my description here. Go ahead. Let me cut you off.
So I'm trying to find the part where he says where they actually come from. Let me see here.
Every single market.
I think I got it here. Let's see.
Road of the present day.
Is
Along
this?
this road, the Carthaginians traded with the Niger for carbuncles, skin.
Let's see, what are you talking about tonight?
Crossing the desert through Siwa and Algala, and between.
Where is? This is it. This is part two.
Along the coast of Africa to the Straits of Gibraltar.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah, that's
Far
it.
down
But
the
it's
western coast as the mouths of the Senegal.
not. I don't know where. How come it's not talking about
Has any record.
where they're actually from?
Esoteric value. Purple is the last color as it relates to the rainbow. You go from infrared to ultraviolet.
Thus, we get on unquestionable authority evidence of a well-established connection in very early times between Ethiopia and Egypt by the valley of the Nile, between Egypt and Carthage by a road crossing the desert through Siwa and Algala, and between
Yeah, I apologize. I'm trying to locate exactly where, because what I had sent you actually that timestamp shows when he showcases it to be Eritrea, and I just found it to be very, very interesting. But for some reason,
You know what I could
it's
do?
not.
I can play
It's
that.
not.
I could play that same link that you sent me, and I think that might take care of that. Let me see. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it.
the civilization of the Phoenicians, contemporary at least in part with the history of Egypt, dates also from the earliest periods of which civil history has any record. The Phoenicians are believed to have migrated from Eritrea on the coast of the Red Sea
There
about
it
the year
is.
2000 BC to the Mediterranean, where they were first established on a strip of Syria between the chain of Lebanon and the sea,
Let
and
me know when you
afterwards
need me to
took
pause.
possession of a portion of
Yeah,
Greece.
you can pause it. You can pause right there. Hopefully everybody heard that. I don't know if we need to replay it one more time, but
Okay.
he clearly says Eritrea.
Yep. I'll play it one more time.
Of which civil history has any record. The Phoenicians are believed to have migrated from Eritrea on the coast of the Red Sea about the year 2000 BC to the Mediterranean, where they were first established on a strip
Just
of
stop it
Syria
right there.
between the chain of Lebanon and the sea.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. I've already asked you this question. I know the answer, but I want the people to hear it. Have you ever heard anybody talk about Eritrea in connections to ancient Phoenicians or any of the stuff that you've heard in the past, let's say 3 or 4 years, outside of myself? Have you heard anybody or even seen any of the scholars talk about Eritrea?
No, I literally had to go back and dig into scholars' work to even find it and even message them. And yeah, they sent me what they had, but I hadn't heard it like being, touted or exclaimed by anyone. No.
Right. I've talked to a lot of the brothers and sisters that, people follow, and they have, they got names. And even them at the beginning, they were always saying Ethiopia. It's only until recent time, some of them were even saying some other things, but and it's unfortunate because as an Eritrean, I had to actually say certain things. Like I would claim, just so I can get some time to talk, I would have to agree with some of the things that I knew wasn't even true. Right?
Mm,
Because if you come in, and point exact is like a couple of days ago. I mean, do you want to use names on this platform, or should we not
Yeah.
mention them and just?
No, we
Okay.
definitely yeah, we can call out whoever we need to call out. Don't
Okay.
have
So I was.
everybody's, just so we can put a little disclaimer out. Anybody that we do name, anybody that we cite, etc., is welcome to come on here and rebut any claims made here. So we're an open platform. If you got something to say, we are glad to listen to you.
Perfect. Okay. So I was on Sinetta's, and you know, he has this dude named Brother Reggie, and I don't have no ill will towards Brother Reggie,
Hmm.
but for the past, I don't know, I want to say 7 months, I've been trying to ask this brother a simple question: where do the original Egyptians come from? Because he keeps talking about, you know, as far west as as far west as Ghana, and the last time I asked him, he said northeast, south, and west. There was this other individual on there that kept just, just clapping every time he would say something when I was talking to him, as if it was thorough. He even used the word thorough. So, oh, Brother Reggie, that was a thorough assessment. And I'm thinking to myself, how's that thorough? He told. So if we're in the United States, right? If
Uh,
we are in the United States and somebody says, and they're claiming, and this is just for hypotheticals, people, so don't take this and say, oh, he said United States and da 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 da. This ain't that. So I'm trying to paint a picture, and somebody is from California. They can't tell you that they're from Northeast United States, Southeast United States, Southwest United States, Northwest United States.
mm,
No, they from California, especially. And this is what gets me, because this brother, right, has been doing this for quite some time. Because I've definitely seen these videos for quite some time, and I just want the truth to be out there. So for him, for as long as he's been studying and all these things he claims he knows, how come he never actually spoke with the people from this area? It's good to read the books that the scholars have read, and it's up to us to take what they have written already and to carry it to the next level, the next stage, right? Because it's constantly being updated. The more you know, you should. And this is kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say attack on somebody's character, but you can tell somebody's character by how they receive information, right? And he's just not willing to receive information. He's kicked me out multiple times for simply asking the question. So, not to be long-winded, but there's plenty of other, like, what is it? What's the brother's name? Unc, brother Unc in Garfield. I was on, what was his? I
oh,
forget what it was.
before you go there,
Uh,
let's. I'm gonna slow it down just for 1 second, um,
yeah.
because I wanted to just touch on Reggie just for a quick hot minute, because I just wanted to be clear that, like, I'm definitely listening, and obviously the audience is listening in and going to be listening in, um, but I would just want to be clear that me and Reggie and Sonetta also have history. And, if you happen to see this, Sonetta or Brother Reggie, you are welcome to come on the show. Um, you know, you guys have already dodged us on debates separately, from what I understand. Um, Reggie, if you want to rehash the Morris debate, I'd be more than happy to have you here. If you want to debate Eritrea with my brother Nakfa, you can as well. If you want to debate Kemet, if you want to debate anything, I welcome you to come on our platform. But yeah, please continue.
Well, and then also, welcoming as well all these individuals that are throwing these books around, like the Bible, Old Testament, and who belongs to what. I think we need to have that group of individuals come into this room as well, because you know, yeah. What's crazy to me, brother Gabriel, is this, right? They will tell you up and down that they anti-European, right? Or not anti-European, but anti-Eurocentric.
Uh,
But every talking point of theirs comes from that Eurocentric point of view. For instance, they like to use the term black. And then they
got
also like to use the Medunetter, which was broken down supposedly by a European.
yeah.
But that same European in that book that's highlighted in Sheikh Anthony Job's book
Mm,
clearly says that the Egyptians never looked at each other or called each other by black. But they will go on this long 16-hour journey about how a black cattle
yeah.
is them being black.
Yeah. That's pretty sad actually when you take it into account. I'm very familiar with what you're speaking of, especially but and I'll say I'm familiar with it from the Wallace Budge angle, if you will. I went through both encyclopedias with a fine tooth comb dealing with Kemet, and I found not one reference to a human being in reference to Kemet or Kemet. There was a few different variations. It only, just like in English and in Latin, it only referenced uh, animals and black objects. So that's what I found. But please continue.
Well, and then here's another thing, right? Okay, one thing for sure, two things for certain. If you're going to use Dr. Ben and all of these individuals, they've already established that these Egyptians come from a different place. So, if this place that we've already started to break down came up from a central location where there was a lot of wealth, it was an abundance of wealth. It was wealth galore, right? Seriously though, because look at the attributes they're giving it, the titles they're giving this area. Every single scholar will have you leaving out of Gipsy and going to this centralized location where many expeditions have been taken. So when these individuals are saying, no, a European was the one that broke it down for us, as if this was what you're saying it is, not one individual in that land, right, that you guys are referencing as Egypt, not one was able to speak or hold on to that ancient language, because the scholars are saying they come from a different place. They're referencing this place called the land of gods. We understand where the oldest alphabet is coming from, right? And in that area, for sure, they're still speaking Ge'ez. They are 100% Skypage Gianna right now. What I just did is that.
Mm,
So for them to then bypass the scholars and then have you just hyper focus on Egypt and this what they consider Medinetter hieroglyphs, right? That came supposedly from a European, bypassing the people that should have been there that could have. I mean, so you're speaking it in 2024, but not one individual was able to speak it. So we got to start asking ourselves some questions here, ladies and gentlemen. Have we really been bamboozled? Like, have we really? Because as an Eritrean, I'm tired of hearing Ethiopia and how great you guys
yeah, no,
claim. This is no disrespect to Ethiopians because you've seen it, Dr. Gabriel. We have plenty of Ethiopians and they agree with us. They agree with me. They say, you're right. I got no qualms with you. It's just those ones that think they got educated in the
yeah, there's some
institution.
some that are and some that won't budge, you know. But it's good to see those that can be open to that information. Um, and I mean, you're making a great point because no, they're not the only people who spoke the language. However, from what my understanding is that they're the only ones that had it translated into English. Um, you know, my understanding is that the Moors had already broke all of that stuff down, understood it, translated it uh, earlier in the earlier times, hundreds of years earlier. Um, However, those people who had that scholarship weren't in the realm of, if you will, European academia in 1870 or whatever year they were, digging stuff up and figuring stuff out. So yeah, you make a great point. But to your point, there definitely were people that look like us that could still read, write, understand, explain, etc. However, those people weren't part of the bureaucratic academia of the time, if I could add that in.
Well, and then just to hit it even, what's funny to me is you can use that information against them, right?
Hmm.
So they will tell you that they, ancient Egypt or Kemet or we call Gypsy, made plenty of what? Voyages. So you telling me you're gonna make plenty of expeditions to this place and you didn't know how to talk what they were talking? Like you couldn't communicate? So if that means then they know your metanet or hieroglyphs. Somehow that metanet or hieroglyphs has to be able for them, which is where I come from, to understand it and then give you a coherent response or give you a response, right, that would make sense because obviously at the end of the day you travel from a far away place, right? Well, not too far
Right.
away, but you travel the length, the distance. So you're not just it's odd to me that they're stuck hyper focused on this European or this Eurocentric. But then in the stories though, it's like I'm with them and then I'm like, yo, you got it wrong. Like they will start telling the truth and then they veer off. It's like they start using their own, no, I think there's a shortcut over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just follow the route, we'll get there safe. So I'm saying all that to say is that if you were gonna tell me a story that ancient people were trading with one another, then they obviously were able to communicate with one another. And then
Right.
you're saying that it took a European much later to break it down, but then
Hmm.
all the scholars that look like us are saying no, look elsewhere, look up the Nile, look up more, because there is a great wealth, an abundance of wealth, and these people out here are breaking some science down. They really have some knowledge.
Yeah. Now you also make a good point too, because I don't know if you remember, I made an not a I didn't make the archaeological find, but I found the archaeological evidence that was found in Mexico, where it was a stele uh, that is over 2,000 years old in Tigrinya, but it was found in Mexico. So obviously, these ancient peoples had been communicating, or else they wouldn't have made a stela of that language. And
Well,
that being said, too, when you get into any of the European sailors, and we'll just start with the first one everybody knows about, right? Cristobal Colon. He came over. His interpreters were spoke, or I should say, spoke Chaldean, Hebrew, and Arabic. So, these people that were speaking these ancient tongues that were directly connected to Giz were able to communicate with these people in the Americas, right? So, to your point, they obviously were communicating, you know. But please continue.
and just to add to just a little bit on that as well. First, and then these individuals know because they claim they read Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben has actually said that Queen Magda, right, actually
Mhm.
had maps of Central and South America before any Christopher Colombo. And we know when Queen Magda, most individuals will call her Sheba out of, that Solomon story or that biblical story. But the real name would have been Magda in that area, kind of like Moshe would have honestly been Musia. So when we look at that and see what Dr. Ben is even connected, it starts to make you wonder. And then top it off, this went over a lot of individuals' heads. Mexico a while back gave the Olmec statue heads to Ethiopia. And
Mm.
I'm thinking to myself, of all the things you could have gave Ethiopia,
Ooh.
why did you decide to give them that? You know,
Yeah,
and some
hold
people say,
on.
"Oh no, it was just
I
random," and they decided to. I'm like, no, it wasn't random, silly. Y'all not getting it, but it's okay.
Yeah. No, I would love to hear your piece on that because, man, again today as I was researching, I found something so interesting that touches exactly on what you're talking about right now. And I'll just tell you my piece, and then you can break it down. So as I was doing some research, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it read. Basically, it was getting to the point. It said, "Oh, it was speaking of the ancient Maya of Eritrea." You familiar with this? So there was a people known as the
I'm
Maya
definitely, yeah. Well, I mean,
that, that are,
I'm definitely. Go ahead. Go ahead.
they say they're extinct from, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like the Mayans of Mexico. So I just found that correlation to be pretty interesting. And it took me back for a second. I had to stop and reread it and kind of was like, this is interesting because it took me back again to what I just mentioned about finding the Tigrinya uh, in Mexico. And so, from over 2,000 years ago. So I'm like, man, I'm like, Maya. I'm like, this is interesting correlation, but please continue.
Yeah. Nah. I had to actually. I was just had to get my son real quick. But yeah, when like I said, the connections are there. People just need to really just kind of put back everything they've learned and be willing to accept new information, which is really old information at the end of the day. That's like editor. I always some people call it. It's not me, but I've heard it from others say it is the newest, oldest country.
Mm,
For a lot, you know what I mean. So this information is old, but it feels like it's new because a lot of our brothers and sisters and that's another thing too. And you could, and that's the beauty. That's the beauty about our about us, right? You've seen me in rooms and how I interact, and I will always say, brothers and sisters. It's always usually the brothers and sisters that would come back with some crazy insults or wild stories that literally takes away from the what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be building because our ancestors did amazing things across the world,
mhm.
right? And we're sitting there arguing about the most ignorant things and talking about a story that the European and at the end of the day gave them.
That's a fact. Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, no, brother. I think this is a serious topic, a seriously scholarly topic. Although we haven't even looked at the second slide.
We
Like
haven't yet. We haven't looked. This is just the first slide.
I've put the second one up, but we hadn't even got to it. We played a little video for those who just came in. We had a slide up earlier that we went in on. We played a piece of a video, but there was so much to unpack. We only played half of it. I have a second slide up, but I still need to play the rest of the video. But I think my brother was still speaking. I just wanted to touch, and I saw we had some new people in the room, so I just wanted to address that as well, bring people up to speed of what's going on.
Right. And let me turn this to the side so I can take a good look. All right. So, and then once again, so the opinion of all the ancient writers on the Egyptians race is more or less summed up by, sorry, that's my son, Gaston. By the, what does he say? Almost unanimous testimony of ancient historians, they belong to a,
Oh my,
go back to the other side. Yeah.
yeah, that was my bad. I was
Yeah,
trying to
you're
make it
good.
bigger. Let me make it bigger. Hold on. One more time. One more time. How's that?
Perfect. And the most important thing is where my finger is pointing at is the
Mm,
fact that first settled in Ethiopia. In
mm,
Ethiopia. So now at this time we have to understand what are they really talking about, right? Because it can't be the country present day Ethiopia because we've already established that Sheikh Anthony Joppa showed us from the other slide that it's Abyssinia. So now it's Ethiopia. They're being very specific, right? This is in 1846 to 1916. So they're being very specific that they first settled in Ethiopia. Now,
mm,
this Ethiopia couldn't have been the Ethiopia we know as today, right? Just like we know that Abyssinia is not Ethiopia, but it really is Eritrea. Once again, these Egyptians, right? This understanding that they brought with them from a place that they call the land of God, where they're doing amazing things that mere men cannot do,
mm,
cannot be found in Ethiopia because there are plenty of kingdoms that predate that great Aksum. And when we look at, like I said earlier, look at that great Aksum, we're gonna have to start realizing some other things. But there's a book, Civilization of Ancient Africa to 1800, and it
Okay.
even illustrates in that book that even what we know where these ancient Nubian places or kingdoms were, that there was an ancient Eritrean kingdom that really ran this whole area. And when you pick up a book called The Throne of Adalus, it also talks about this description, a throne where the king goes north, east, west, and south, and he conquers. And but this script is written in Giz, where the throne is sitting. Now, this is a place that present day now they're excavating because they haven't been able to excavate, and 90% of Adalus is underwater. This is another thing that we should remember, because this is going to be something that some other scholars we're going to be talking about will bring up as an attribute to a place that they're talking about. They're going to say this city ended up going in water. And as present day, anybody can look it up. Majority of Adalus is underwater in the Red Sea, which once
Mhm.
again, Edita, the only country along the Red Sea, is named after.
Wow. This is deep. This is deep. Because and I brought this up to you a while back, but that information dealing with Andalus, I mean, it just always brings me to Andalus, to Atlantis. It's underwater. Like and when you do the history, we're talking about the most powerful civilization possibly of all time, the ancient
That
Kushite
nobody talks
Empire.
about.
Yeah, this is like, and we're talking about the land of the gods. Punt. There's too many references here, too many layers, and I think people get scared of this information. I'm gonna be honest. I think people are scared to touch on it. Not only do they miss it, but I think those that do don't go too far with it because of the
Oh,
geopolitics, and that it is like almost political suicide for those who it matters to try to um, raise Eritrea's, uh, I guess you can say, or raise Eritrea to its proper place in history and among the other nations of the earth. To me, it's quite obvious. Although it did take some time and some study to see what kind of happened, because as you're elucidating right now, it seems like a lot of this information can be found. But when you listen to the people who are claiming to be at the feet of these specific scholars, master teachers, they don't show these pages. They don't have this highlighted. I've never seen Brother Reggie demonstrate this or talk about this. I've even heard, and the information that we were playing earlier, as you expressed, came directly from the brother known as Sabir Bey. And I've been on when he's kicked you off before, just for bringing up Eritrea and saying, no, brother, it's not Ethiopia. He's like, oh, get out of here, or whatever he might say. He could be pretty rude. So he's probably said worse. But yeah, I just want to just jump in for a second.
yeah, it's it's unfortunate too, because at the end of the day, I got no hate towards any of them. I'm just saying, at least put out the right information. At least put out the right information. If at the end of the day you're gonna have to visit these places, and the people are then gonna find out that they've been lied to this whole time. But it's just funny though, that you had said earlier. Some people are talking about, like, the fact that this brother Amadeus Christ that had he brought up Edita. I've
Mm-hmm.
never heard anybody talk about Edita ever, 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 ever like this, to connect them. And I've dealt with the people that he's talked to, like he's dealt with. He's dealt with the brother Sabir Bey a lot, because the brother Sabir Bey, I used to be on the show. He he would always shout him out, because I guess they work with each other or whatever.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to myself, they should know better, because I've literally told them plenty of times that it's Edita, Edita, Edita. It has nothing to do with Ethiopia. If we're really gonna tell the truth, like people are claiming, right? Put it out there.
Well,
Put
it's
out
one
the
thing,
information.
it's a big difference between doing this, right? Because you'll see the brother do this in all his demonstrations. Let me grab a different book because this one seems to be disappearing in the code. But instead of just holding up books like this all day, actually crack it open and start reading that bad boy. But yeah, my brother Nakfa has lost his signal. Let me see if I can get him back on real quickly here. You back with us, brother? Can you hear us? Salam, salam. Okay. He popped in and popped off. We're going to try to get him back in. And even if we can't get him back in today, we will be back on again to bring you this information. We are going to be diving into a lot of historical information, narratives, and doing a lot of correction. My brother's back up. Let me see here. Boom, boom, boom. Can you hear us, brother? Salam. Try to turn it up. Let's see. Peace, peace, peace. Yeah, I can see you. I just can't hear you. Okay. Unmute your mic. Can't unmute you guys. Okay. So you're going to have to unmute yourself. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Yeah, my brother's having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to end up shutting this down for the day. I'm going to reach out to him and just let him know so that we can set up part 2 of this particular episode because we still have more information to cover. You pop back up. Let me see if we can get him on this time. Brother Nakfa. Salam, salam. Okay, I can see you, can't hear you. Still not letting me unmute you yet. Hopefully you got my text. Don't know if you can hear me. I'll give my brother a few more minutes to see if he can come back in. If not, we'll just go ahead and shut it down. Like I said, family, it's been an excellent show. We've covered some great topics on history, and we're going to continue to cover these topics. If you guys have any questions, any comments, leave them down below, and we will definitely address those comments and questions live on the next show. And also, if you have ideas for shows, if you have some information you want us to touch, let us know. We'll be glad to do so. Please like, please subscribe, hit the notification. We're trying to get more acclimated to coming on regularly and bringing this information to you. We feel that the information that we're bringing is very valuable. So we hope that you find it valuable as well. And just let us know if we're not doing a good job. Just say so. Brother Nakfa, are you able to get in? There you go.
Okay.
Boom.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Signal was a little choppy. But
yeah, the Bluetooth.
What I did, I just kind of threw a little caveat out there so we could do a part 2. Since we only did half of the video, we can come back on another day. It could be tomorrow or whenever you have some time, and we can make it shake again because I can tell that this is just one of many, and this is something that needs to happen, and it's needed to happen for a couple of years now. But the stars are aligned, and is happening right now. So again, Brother Nakfa, if you have anything to say to the people before we shut it off for today, and then we'll definitely come back. You just let me know when you want to do it again, and we'll jump back up here and bring the people some more information that they need.
Yeah, definitely. First, shout out to you for putting this together. And then the bills, the amazing conversations that we've had, over the years, just on not just geopolitics, but this history and how it's connected with geopolitics, and how we need to move accordingly as a unit, as people that really are connected at the end of the day. And you guys are going to love the information that we bring to y'all. We will be able to give you responses to all the videos that quote unquote say they know the history of Africa and the nuances, and we'll see if they're really telling you the truth or not. We're not saying we know everything, but from the majority of people that we've listened to, and trust me, it's a lot of people out there. I mean, I've heard some crazy stuff as far as the exodus happening from Grand Canyon to Mississippi,
Oh my.
so
Yeah, I can't wait.
hola, my people.
Hey, people gonna get mad. They're gonna be upset, but I really
But
don't care.
right.
Because what we're not gonna do is we're not gonna be disrespectful. We're not going to berate anybody. We're not gonna make fun. You might poke a little bit of fun, but it'll be in fun. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, we notice some of these people have ill intentions with that information, but we know some people just don't know any better. And so we're going to address it like family, like we cousins, like we brothers, uncles, aunties, etc. And we're going to treat everybody like family, right or wrong, indifferent. And we're just going to put the information on the table. We're going to clean it up so that our children have a better platform of data to work with. And like the brother said, we do need to be working together. Uh, and how we can do that is we can bond over truth, right? Um, one thing in our lessons, and I'll end with this, and I'll let you close it out, brother. Is in our lessons, it teaches that it is better to gain an enemy through truth than a friend through flattery. And I hold that. I've lost so many friends just being honest. And at first it did, I was like, dang, maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. But hindsight is 2020, and nah, you gotta say what you gotta say. And that's just how it is. And you just can hope or pray that that person doesn't feel a way about what you say. And of course, you know, we all can work on our communication skills. But I do try my best to work with kid gloves, if you will, and try to be gentle with people. But still, with that, people can become emotionally defensive from hearing something that does not agree with what they've already agreed to believe in, if that makes sense. So, with that, my brother, just close us out and we'll shut it down, brother.
All right, thank you, people, everybody, for coming, and I appreciate y'all. Just bring out your notepads, bring out your pen. Come take a ride with us. Because we are connected at the end of the day, like the brother said. So, dahan hadaru in in Tigrinya, that means have a great night. And I'll text you and I'll let you know what my availability is, brother. So,
Perfect.
I'll let you know about that. But yeah, peace, salam.
Islam, peace and love. Salam, family.